those are two optimistic things. And then the less optimistic thing I wanted to say is you said that we can all unite around the idea that we want our children to reach their full potential. I have to say that I don't think all parents or all members of a community necessarily agree with that, because if their expression of their individuality is different from the parents' norms or the community's norms, the sad thing we know is true is that they are repressed. And that, of course, causes a type of trauma.
Yeah, no, that's true. I guess I look at it from the standpoint of beneath that all is trauma that can be healed. And back in the day, in the 90s and 2000s, like I'm hip hop generation, grew up on the East Coast. And so I worked on the West Coast with hardcore gangsters in the 90s and 2000s, like real intense kids and real intense violence. It
As
was
a social worker, or what was your job that you were
no,
doing?
no, 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 no. I did carry a caseload for a year and a half of like these amazing kids, of like African American kids, Native American kids, white kids, um, just the whole gamut. But we built programs all in the Pacific Northwest and all over the West Coast. And it was an incredible time in this country where there's some incredible people doing rad, powerful work with young people and in communities like Carl Upchurch and Jeffrey Canada in New York City, who became quite well known for his, I think it was Waiting for Superman program. Um, and these were just forces of nature. So we built these revolutionary programs with a cross section of extraordinary people like surgeons and other doctors and professors and artists and theater people and revolutionaries. We worked with all these 60s era revolutionary groups, that had a history with the intelligence services, let's call that, right? We would often have I would hear the clicking on my phone calls on my landline, and I came to learn what that meant and all that. So that's how heady and amazing our work was. But one thing that I learned is that because we would have these parents, we would bring parents into our work, they had to be present. And I think on the surface, and I think under certain pressures, this is true, that parents, there are there that reality that you just discussed is true. But I can tell you that in all the years of work in with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of families, I can't even remember a single family, a single parent who, when they were in the right circumstance with other parents, that was key, who were all, it wasn't that they had a similar vision of potential, but they built solidarity around the suffering that they all were experiencing by having this expanded distance between themselves and their kids.
Hmm.
Right. And that's what I saw happen over and over again. You had these beautiful children and they were at 9 and they were at 10 and you knew them. Like they were in your heart, they were in your life. And then something happened because reality in our United States reality is so viciously violent for children. And it doesn't really matter where you live, it's just different expressions of violence. And what I saw over and over again is that something happened, something around 9 or 10 or 11, where the parent and the child would lose each other in
Hmm.
time and space. And it was the most tragic breaking that you could ever imagine. It was so tragic that they didn't even know it had happened, really, right? And then when the parents came together with their kids who were now 15, 16, 17, and we had older kids that we had trained, like OGs that were like 18, 19, 20, that we had trained to be facilitators. And we were paying good money, by the way, which is really important to me. It was as if that dimension of time could change and the yearning in their heart for their 10-year-old back,
Hmm.
which I totally relate to, right, as a parent, could be transformed into this union of your daughter who was now 17
Mm.
and still wanted to be loved by you as a 10-year-old, right?
Mm.
So all that stuff that had gotten in the way of parents and kids and all the madness, I think that sets into parents, that conditioning and programming that just really like messes everything up in this like diabolical, heinous, and awful way. In the right context, with the right energy and the right pressure, because we were like pretty gangster ourselves, it comes back.